It is a fact of history, and it is a fact of our nature that humans can choose to be inhuman. This is the paradox of freedom, that awesome power, that grave responsibility to choose between good and evil. Let us not forget that even in the darkest hours of the Holocaust, men were free to choose good, and some did. That is the eternal witness of the righteous among the nations. And let us not forget that even now there are those who would choose evil and who would launch another Holocaust if left unchecked. That is the challenge before us today. Remembering the Holocaust is not merely an act of historical recognition. It must also be an understanding and an undertaking. An understanding that the same threats exist today, and an undertaking of the solemn responsibility to fight those threats. Jews today in many parts of the world and in many different settings are increasingly subjected to vandalism, threats, slurs, and just plain old-fashioned lies. Let me draw your attention to some particularly disturbing trends. Anti-Semitism has gained a place at our universities, where at times it is not the mob who are removed, but the Jewish students under attack. And under the shadow of a hateful ideology with global ambitions, one which targets the Jewish homeland as a scapegoat, Jews are savagely attacked around the world, such as most appallingly at Mumbai in 2008. And we must recognize that while its substance is as crude as ever, its method is now more sophisticated. Harnessing disparate anti-Semitic, anti-American, and anti-Western ideologies, it targets the Jewish people by targeting the Jewish homeland, Israel, as the source of injustice and conflict in the world, and uses perversely the language of human rights to do so. We must be relentless in exposing this new anti-Semitism for what it is. Now, of course, Israel, like any country, may be subjected to fair criticism. And like any free country, Israel subjects itself to such criticism. Healthy, necessary, democratic debate. But when Israel, the only country in the world whose very existence is under attack, is consistently and conspicuously singled out for condemnation, I believe we are morally obligated to take a stand. Demonization, double standards, delegitimization. The 3 Ds, it is a responsibility of us all to stand up to them. And I know, by the way, because I have the bruises to show for it, that whether it is at the United Nations or any other international forum, the easiest thing to do is simply to just get along and go along with this anti-Israeli rhetoric, to pretend it is just about being even-handed, and to excuse oneself with the label of honest broker. There are, after all, a lot more votes, a lot more, in being anti-Israeli than in taking a stand. But as long as I am Prime Minister, whether it is at the United Nations, the Francophonie, or anywhere else, Canada will take that stand, whatever the cost. And friends, I say this not just because it is the right thing to do, but because history shows us, and the ideology of the anti-Israeli mob tells us all too well if we listen to it, that those who threaten the existence of the Jewish people are a threat to all of us. Earlier, I noted the paradox of freedom. It is freedom that makes us human. Whether it leads to heroism or depravity depends on how we use it. We have a solemn duty to defend the vulnerable, to challenge the aggressor, to protect and promote human rights, human dignity at home and abroad. None of us really knows whether we would choose to do good in the extreme circumstances of the righteous. But we do know that there are those today who would choose to do evil if so permitted. Thus, we must use our freedom to confront them and their anti-Semitism at every turn. And it is here that history serves not to warn, but to inspire. As I said on the 60th anniversary of the founding of the State of Israel, Israel appeared as a light in a world emerging from a deep darkness. Against all odds, that light has not been extinguished. It burns bright, upheld by the universal principles of all civilized nations: freedom, democracy, and justice. By working together more closely in the family of civilized nations, we affirm and strengthen those principles, and we declare our faith in humanity's future, in the power of good over evil. I want to thank you all for all you are doing to spread that faith, and I want to thank you for your kind attention today. Merci beaucoup.